What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of CO Fish Bro, and today I'm teaching you how to fly fish. Everything from how to rig your pole to how to read the water. So go ahead and strap up your waders and let's get into it. It's time for me to address the questions you've been asking. Do a video on how to fly fish. Tell us a little bit about how you read the water, how you know when a fish is biting, and even kind of what your setup looks like. So I'm going to go through all those things today, and hopefully you guys will have a better understanding of how to fly fish. So let's go ahead and get started with how I rig up my rod. So I'm going to show you guys just kind of my basic setup. Let's just say when I go to Deckers, water depth around 6 feet, okay? That's probably a little deeper than most of the places, but we're just gonna start with 6 feet. Let's pretend that this right here is our rod. And then I'm gonna make the floating line on here. I have some green floating line. Floating line's weight is matched up with the weight of my rod. And then on the end here, it's got just this little loop. And that loop is how you attach your leader. So you can buy these leader packs. I buy the Rio pack. I think I used 3X leader. I'm gonna go ahead and just make the leader kind of a light blue here so you guys can see it. But so those ones are connected with a perfection loop or a loop knot. You can look that up online to see what it is. And then you have this leader line and it tapers. So it's really kind of thicker in the beginning and then it slowly starts to get really thin, okay? So that's how these leader lines are made. So the one I usually buy is 3X, and it's about 9.5 feet, something like that. On the end of that, what I end up tying is a tippet ring. This is a small metal ring, and that metal ring ties to my leader line, and if I break off, hopefully I'm breaking off right here on that tippet side. So that way when I tie on, a 6X tippet or something smaller, it breaks off. I'm not worried about, my leader and having to replace that every time because leaders can get kind of expensive. So anyway, that's what we've got tied right there is the tippet ring. So then I'm tying this piece of tippet, and usually that's like 6X. I want something that's fairly light because I want to be able to, have a quick connection to the fish, also not have them see that tippet. So that tippet is going to be 1 to 1.5 times the depth. Okay, so in this case we have 6 feet of depth, and so we're either going to make that 6 feet, or 1.5 times the depth would be 9 feet. Just kind of depends. As long as you are getting algae on your fly, you're down deep enough, and then I would even almost adjust a little bit shorter. So that, you're scraping bottom, but you're not catching all that algae and picking off, the grass off your flies every time. So we're going to do 6.9 or 6 to 9 feet of length there. That goes straight to your weights. I use these dark green Dinsmore weights. So you'll pinch on a couple weights there. Usually I'm using B or AB in faster runs. You're tying on your first fly about 18 inches from those weights. You're going from the tippet ring to the front of the weights, and then I have 18 inches, and that's where I'll tie on my first fly. A lot of times when I go to Deckers, I'm tying on as a first fly, tying on a Pat's rubber legs. So that is usually my lead fly. You'll see in a lot of my videos that a Pat's is what I use there in the front. Then I'm going to go ahead and usually I'll tie on the same tippet. Sometimes there's a need to go a little bit lighter, but I will tie off the back of the hook and I'll run down to my second fly, and this is about 12 to 18 inches, something like that. And my second fly is usually some sort of beadhead nymph. So I've got kind of that bead there on the top, and then, you know, your hook, and I don't know. Some people like, you know, something bright. So they may go with a red or whatnot, but that's basically my first nymph right there. It's got to have that bead head. You want to have some weight to it there to help get the rest of the flies. But then from there, we're going to tie again off the back of that hook, and I'm not changing the tippet size at this point. I may change it once, but I'm not changing the tippet size at this point. That's another 12 to 18 inches. And then on the end of that, we'll tie on our last nymph. And that's my setup. So we've got the fly line, and then we tie this little perfection loop right here, or the loop knot. We go straight into our 3x 9.5 foot line of leader, and then we tie straight to the tippet ring there. And then we have this long section here of tippet, and that tippet runs right into the weights. I forgot the indicator. Let's go ahead and put that in there. And that distance between the tippet ring and the weights is the 6 to 9 feet, or the 1 to 1.5 times your depth. Then from the weights to that first fly, that's your 18 inches. And then once you tie on that first fly, it's about 12 to 18 to the next, and another 12 to 18 to the next. And then you're done. So that is my setup. Now you guys know how to set up your pole, so let's go out to the water when I fish with my buddy JT. I'll tell you a little bit about how to read the water and how you know when a fish is taking your fly. What's going on, guys? We are back. This is one of my favorite spots to catch some fish on the river. Here with John today, and we are going to try for some trout again. The water level is about 100 CFS. It's been that way for the last 5 or 6 days, and it's looking beautiful. It looks like we could potentially have a pretty good day, so we'll see what happens. We're gonna go tie up some Pat's rubber legs and a few other small midges and see if that'll work for the beginning of the day, and then we might be a little bit more mobile a little later, but depending on how this spot is, we'll see how long we stay here. Stay tuned. Okay, we're gonna talk about this piece of water here, tell you how to read it for fish. So right down the center is a riffle. That is exactly where you want to be fishing to find the active feeding fish. It's a faster piece of water flowing over small to medium sized boulders, and that is where most of your fish are going to be hanging out trying to find food. Then you got some other areas of water you want to identify. The bottom right, we have a flat, and you can also see another flat located at the top left of the screen. Those are both areas where fish are going to rest. You might find some feeding fish in there, especially on the outsides of the major riffle in the middle, but for the majority of your fishing, you're going to want to stay inside of that riffle. Boulders of a run are a great place to target fish, especially on the leading edge of boulders along the foam lines, as well as the backside of boulders where fish can rest as insects tumble by. Foam lines are a focus point. This is where most of the insects will congregate as they're floating down the river, and where most fish will be hanging out. Let's talk a scenario. Here's my indicator. I'm fishing that piece of water. The water nearest me is moving fairly quick, while the water where my indicator is moving a bit slower. This is going to cause drag on the line, so we need to mend. In one quick flick of the wrist, we have mended the line. This is pushing the line upstream and allowing our flies to drift naturally through the current. If fish see an unnatural drift, they're not going to eat your presentation. This is the single most important thing to remember in fly fishing. And it takes quite a bit of practice, but if you do it right, you might just end up thinking that you caught a fish. Alright guys, John just got into a really nice fish. He caught him on a bars emerger midge, foam back emerger. Take a look at his fish here. Take a little gander.
It barely hooked, but can't get to it.
Woo! Nice fish, John.
Oh.
Look at that beastie.
Okay, ready? Okay.
Woo! I gotta get a picture of you, not just video. Oh yeah!
There he goes.
There he goes. How'd that feel, John?
Oh, I did not. I thought it was another little one. I caught one this big, and that one would eat that one. I should have. Oh.
Dude, that thing was gnarly. Good first fish. All right, this last part I'm going to tell you about, I get questions about all the time. How do you tell if a fish has taken your nymph? Well, you're going to have to watch that indicator pretty tight, but I want to show you something that happened to me here out on the water. Look at how slightly this indicator moves. Just barely goes down. We'll go ahead and rewind it. Right there. Did you see it? That's all it takes. Look, I've got a fish on. You have got to set the hook on everything. The person who sets the hook on every tiny little stop, hitch, or move is going to catch more fish. And don't tangle up your line in your reel like I did there. I ended up losing this fish. He got close to me and kind of snapped off right there. So, bummer on that guy. Here's another one. So the lesson here is if you have enough room to let your indicator work downstream, let it work. If you can mend the line and keep a good drift going, there's no reason to stop it right away. So I have no competition here, and I'm just going to let my indicator drift all the way through this piece of run. And you'll see even here, I let out a little bit of line, trying to let it drift even a little further, maybe touch the water where I haven't fished yet. And then guess what? Boom, fish on. I let it drift just a little further, and that's where we found success. So this can be a really good key, especially if you fish the same area for longer than 5-10 minutes. You can let that indicator drift a little further into a new spot and you'll hit the fish. Now this doesn't always work out because sometimes you can't let it drift that far. You've got other people in the way or the water's too quick or you just don't have a good drift going. Then I don't recommend it. But if you can get a good drift going, definitely let it run through. Now how many of you guys saw that river otter right on the hook set? So thanks for checking out the channel. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, go ahead and click this free subscribe button right here. You can also check out our next video over there or our most recent uploads just above my head. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time on CO Fish Bro.